August is one of my favourite times of year, not least because next week I have a birthday. I wonder what Mrs. W has got me.
Oh, you'll have to wait and see. It's a surprise.
But no, in all seriousness, we just build and build on harvest during August. So much in the garden to harvest. But we need to make sure that we're on top of the jobs that do need to be done so that we can continue with those harvests, protect our crops and make sure that all is well in the August no-dig garden. So in today's video we shall look at 10 jobs that need to be done to ensure the August garden thrives. First up is look out for late blight. Now late blight can thrive in warm and damp conditions, and actually as we've now moved into the month of August, it's actually got a bit damper. We're seeing a bit more rain about, but of course it's still quite warm, and that's when it can take a hold. So do keep an eye on your potatoes. These are fine at the moment, but they're not expecting to be. Most of these are from the Sapu range. But if you're not growing potatoes that are resistant to the blight, then you do need to keep an eye out for the late blight. And it's not just potatoes, you need to keep an eye on your tomatoes too. They're from the same family, the deadly nightshade family, so they're susceptible to exactly the same diseases. Thankfully at the moment all of our tomatoes are looking very healthy, but what you're looking for is yellowing or brown leaves, black spots on the leaves and on the stems. If you see that, you need to remove and cut the tops down. Take the tomatoes at whatever stage they are, otherwise it will travel down the stem and into your tomatoes. As for potatoes, just cut all the holes down and leave them there for a good couple of weeks before you harvest them. You want the blight spores to disappear. Otherwise, when you harvest them, they'll just transfer onto your tubers that you want. August is the time when you need to take the tops out of your tomatoes, and you want to be doing this in the first half of August. Now, it's normally said that you let the tomato get 5 trusses on it and then you take the tops out. This has been an exceptional year for tomatoes this year, and they're already, myself and Mrs. W were just counting, there's already 8 trusses on this tomato. So really we need to now stop this, and the reason why is because the weather will get cooler as we go through August and the light levels will diminish. And these that you see here, they will not have time to actually ripen. So I'm going to take the top of this out now. That will stop that growing any further, but it will allow us to hopefully see all of these tomatoes that are on here ripen. And you can see some lovely trusses that are formed on here. So we need to do a bit of harvesting, Mrs. W.
We certainly do, yes.
Because when you harvest the right tomatoes, that will then start these ones off so that they can get going. It doesn't like to put its energies there when it knows it's got tomatoes there. Once you pick them, it thinks, oh, I have no seed to set, so I need to ripen more. So keep on top of your harvesting of tomatoes. And you can see here that we have a really nice set of these Corda Bew. And this is new to us, isn't it?
Yes, these were grown from seed, weren't they?
Yeah. They're looking really good. And that leads me on to my next tip, which is all about keep removing the leaves as each truss sets. We've got a few more to remove here because these ones are now ready. But it really does work. Even those ones at the bottom, they have turned colour, and that's all because the sunlight can now get to them. There's also plenty of airflow that can get around them. So do keep continuing to defoliate your plants. One thing I have noticed this year is that most things are harvested a couple of weeks earlier than I would normally expect. And of course, that's probably down to the lovely warm start that we had to the growing season. These blackberries here that I'm picking, well, we don't normally see them until the second half of August. But we've actually been picking these for the last week or so now. And for my next tip, what I would say is if you know that your area is prone to birds taking your fruit, then do consider netting them. We haven't had too much problems in the past with it here, I'm glad to say. It's one thing the pigeons do leave alone. But as we move towards the end of the month and into September, of course, the food for them becomes less. They do love anything that's red, however, so do make sure that you go after these lovely autumn raspberries. And as I say, if you need to, just throw a net over them, just to stop the birds from getting them. If you can, try and construct it in a way that the netting is not loose and it's pulled taut, just to save the birds actually getting stuck in the netting. The last thing we want to do is to hurt those. We just merely want to stop them getting from our fruit. If you so wish, you can also be planting some cold stored potatoes. You'll find them in the shops now, and if you can get them to grow and avoid the blight, and you can have yourself some nice new potatoes round about late November and leading up to Christmas. How lovely would that be? Now, if you are going to do that, what I would advise is that even if you grow your potatoes in the ground, here in the UK, I would always put them into containers, because the nights will get cold as we go through the following 2 or 3 months into autumn, and then of course on into winter, and that does mean that you can then just pick them up and put them somewhere where the frost cannot get to them. Now, we can put ours in our greenhouse or in our polytunnel later on this year, but a shed would do. You can always bring them back out again when there's no danger of frost and let them get the light and the air and the rain that falls, but it's just overnight. You can just move them to somewhere where they're not going to be hit by frost. And 4 or 5 containers, and that'll do you really, wouldn't it, for that time of the year, just to enjoy that during the festive season. The bees absolutely love lavender. If you want to attract pollinators into your garden, then I'd always advise having some lavender about. They dance around it all day. But now that we're in August, the blooms are starting to go over. You can see here that there are no bees on this today, and the flowers are no longer vibrant. So August is a good time to actually prune your lavender bushes. Now, you don't want to go too far in, and whatever you do, do not take out the woody growth. Just take out the soft growth, this stuff here, where the flowers are on there. Talking about soft growth, what you see here, which hasn't borne any flowers actually, that's a great thing to take for cuttings. You can do that now. And in fact, I think I'll get Mrs. W to demonstrate that in a later video. Because, lavender, the bees really do just love the lavender. And even if you've only got room just for a few plants, and God, that still smells really gorgeous.
I know,
it really does. It really does. Yeah, just to have 1 or 2 plants dotted about on your plot or in your garden, you'll see once it gets into growth next year and it has its flowers, so many bees, hoverflies, all sorts of things, they're all dancing around it. These sprouts are coming on fantastically. They were sown in May and they were transplanted out here in June after our broad beans finished. And of course they've had this mesh netting over it all of the time. At this time of the year primarily it's to keep the cabbage whites out. We don't want them destroying our plants and any other pests that may get to them. A bit later on it will serve as a protection from pigeons, because we have pigeons in the woodland behind us and they're always scavenging after anything they can as we move into the autumn season. But for my next tip, it's a really good idea just to have the nets up, just check them, make sure there are no gaping holes and that everything is fastened down, but also just get under there and have a look at your plants. Just make sure there aren't any nasties lurking around there. Now I've already looked at these so I know that they're all right, but yeah, it's a really good idea periodically just to do that. Prevention, I find, is a lot better than the cure. At this time of the year, of course, all of our harvests come in, and a week or so ago we actually harvested our onions and the shallots. Now whenever you have anything in storage, whether you're curing it or whether it's in long-term storage, it's a good idea periodically to check those and just make sure that there's nothing going soft. We're all right so far, Mrs. W.
Yeah, they're looking good. They're drying nicely, actually, aren't they? Still a little bit of green in the centre of some of the stems, but not a lot.
Yeah, and you really don't want any more in a tray this size than that. The other important thing to do, of course, is to keep turning them, because the ones on the bottom, you know, they're not receiving the light and warmth as well. So just give them a turn so that everything is getting an even curing. And what you're looking for is the dryness to come out right out of these necks, so that when you store it, that moisture can't get down back into the bulb and then cause it to rot in storage. We want these to last as long as possible. And as you said, Mrs. W, these are doing really quite well.
Yeah.
They are still really nice and firm.
You can hear the paperiness of them now, can't you?
You can,
they're
yes.
definitely drying.
So you know they're getting underway. And I've seen some people that have been cutting the necks off and the roots and letting them cure. You don't want to be doing that. Leave the foliage on and the roots on. They can be discarded as and when these have fully cured. If you cut these off and put them into cure, it's going to allow disease, pests, all sorts into your onion. And although you mightn't see it now, a little later on, 2 or 3 months' time, you'll wonder why it's all gone brown and mouldy and awful. It's because something has gotten in there. Yeah, so when you do harvest your onions, leave the stalk on, leave the roots on. They're fine. Once they're fully cured, then you can attend to that. If you are new to our channel and watching us for the first time, I'll just say that this variety is a variety called Globo. Grows great onions, nice big ones too. It's not called Globo for nothing. And everything you can see in here, these were all multi-sown. So some are bigger than others, but in the main you get a good selection of onions. They're sort of medium-sized onions.
I would say they're more medium to large. Certainly from how medium are described in the supermarket, these are definitely large.
I think you're probably right. And we grow our onions, or in our garden, our beds are about 10 foot long and they're 4 foot wide. And I grow 2 beds with these in. If I was to only grow them singularly, I'd probably only fit about 60 to 70 onions in there. But when I multi-sow them, there could be 3 or 4 within that clump. So now you can multiply that single onion by 3 or 4, depending on how many you've got in the clump. It's a great way of growing more of your food in a much smaller space. Now that the rain has returned, there's a bit more moisture about, the grass is actively growing again. It's gone from that awful brown colour that we did have here. It's now greened up lovely, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. We've had a nice amount of quite steady rain, haven't we? So that's been lovely.
So it's back to the mowing again. But equally just as important is to, if you've got grass paths like we have, is to ensure that the edges are kept nice and short. Otherwise, the grass, it will grow over into your beds. If there's couch grass, it'll have roots that's coming in, so you certainly don't want that. So you need to keep it under control, keep the edges nice and neat. And of course, I could say this for virtually every month of the year. Do keep on top of your weeds. If the weather is nice and dry, you can just hoe them off and leave them there in situ, and they'll compost down there in situ, adding more great nutrients to your soil. But if it has been a bit wet, that's the ideal time actually to be able to pull them, but don't leave them because they can reroot because of the dampness. Then for my last tip, well, sit down, have a nice cup of tea or a glass of wine and enjoy all of the hard work you've done with all of your harvests. You've done amazing work over the year, and now is the time to really admire what you've got. There is so much to harvest at this time of the year, and it don't have to put a smile on my face when I see those harvests rolling in. Do let us know in the comments about your successes. We do love to hear about them. Tell us what's coming out of your garden at the moment. What jobs do you particularly need to keep on top of? Do let us know in the comments. And if you like this video, do leave us a like. And if you're not yet subscribed, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more gardening tips and hacks. Now, we were looking at the soft fruit earlier, and in particular we're picking the autumn raspberries that have come early this year, much earlier than they would. It's normally toward the end of August, but the weather has brought them on that much earlier. Hey ho, I quite like that. We love raspberries, but with your summer ones finished, it's now time to prune those. This is the time of year to do it, as soon as you finish harvesting the fruit. If you're not too sure on how to do it, we did make a video a couple of years ago, so watch that video next.